As a Christian, I feel called to share how God has moved in my life. We're mandated to tell people about Jesus Christ, and this is one way. This is a great way that we can share, and so I'm excited to do that. I hope my story will help others and help them to reach Jesus Christ as well. And I'm going to share with you how basically God's worked in my life from the beginning, from getting saved to falling away and then back again. So, as J.R.R. Tolkien might say, what would he say? He would say, there and back again. So this is going to be my story of there and back again, just less hobbits. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Terry Monroe, and this is the good news. So I'm gonna start with a little bit about how I was raised as it relates to religion and God, and then we'll move right into my salvation story. I know it was at least first grade to fourth grade. I went to a private Lutheran school. This is where I learned about the Bible. At Lutheran school, surprise, we had classes on the Bible where we would memorize Bible verses and memorize the chapters of the Bible, which I still have some of them memorized today. And it's not just about the stories, but the values, the morals, the heart of who Jesus is really what we were being taught. We were taught about church, other things like church etiquette, like you didn't turn around in your pews, kind of thing. I mean, most people probably never heard of that, but respecting others and what it means to live with integrity and what it means to do the right thing even if you're not being watched. It's about being a good person, setting a solid foundation for us as kids as we go forward with our lives, and it really set us on the right path. And I really did appreciate that. Conversely, at fourth grade, I did end up transitioning over to a public school because, believe it or not, private school is pretty expensive. So I ended up going to public school, which was, in contrast, I would call it a difficult place. The environment was different. I mean, kids were swearing, but that was a small thing. And the system really seemed more focused on managing the chaos, and there didn't seem to be any focus on the character of the students and making sure that they left the school or learned anything in the school about being good people. So the transition from public school or private school to public school was I wouldn't say it was difficult, but it was noticeable. Is my point, is there was a noticeable difference from what we were learning in Lutheran school and public school, and I thank God for the opportunity that I had to go to a private school where I could have a foundation in God and Jesus Christ and character. So thank God for that. Another place where I say God's light has kind of shined in my life over the years was with my grandparents on my mom's side. My grandfather was raised Mennonite. He left the church because he was called to serve in World War II. In World War II, he worked as a mechanic and then later went to school and became an engineer and finished his life as an engineer. But despite leaving the denomination, they still believed in Jesus Christ. They still believed in God. They were deeply devoted to Jesus. So we attended church every Sunday. Not just attended church, but they truly exuded the fruits of the Holy Spirit in the fact that they were steady, kind, full of grace type of people. Looking at them and looking back on them, they seemed to actually be out of place where they almost didn't belong to this world. You looked at them and they were wonderful people. But it just didn't seem like they belonged here. They were good, and they cared about other people. They would look out for other people, and they brought a lot of great childhood memories for me. At their home, it was kind of a safe haven or a refuge of peace. And through their example, it showed me, I didn't realize it at the time, but it showed me how good people act as they do their day-to-day life. So it was very... again, as a kid, it didn't hit me. I'm learning something here. It was really just as I look back on my grandparents now, I do learn from them, and I'm blessed by having them in my life. So, I mean, back then my biggest concerns were riding my big wheel, hitting jumps, and maybe riding my bicycle, which had a giant banana seat, and trying to figure out how to turn with no hands. Those were my priorities back then. They have changed. So, but not much. Like a lot of us, as I got older, my heart started to feel a little distant from God. My faith got weaker. I still believed in God was real, but I wasn't chasing him. I mean, I didn't, like as a kid, I would pray on my own because I wanted to. But as I got older, I didn't do that. I wasn't angry towards God, but I just didn't seek God's will or to seek to be his servant. So I was not living for God. I mean, honestly, I figured I could handle life on my own terms. Work hard. When you get knocked down, stand back up, learn from your mistakes, and then try again. And these are all good traits to have. But if I would have had God by my side, I would have been so much better off. When I turned 18, I had graduated high school. I graduated a little bit late because I had dropped out when I was 15, 16. I ended up getting a job and getting an apartment for about 9 months. And then I ended up returning to school and lived with some friends for a while so that I can complete high school. So thank goodness I did that. That was good. And I started working at the end of high school in Santa Ana, California, where back then you could get a job doing skilled labor, and I was working at a machine shop. And at the time, I was making really good money. I was making fantastic money. If you were to, like in $25, I was making about $38 an hour, which is about $79,000 a year today. So I was doing well. I could pay my bills, and it was all good. I was a hard worker. I worked long hours. I didn't mind. I worked overtime. I worked swing shift, graveyard shift, whatever shift. It didn't make a difference. I was making money, and I was surviving just fine. And I also had an apartment. My apartment I shared with a friend of mine. We had a group of friends there's probably 6 or 7 of us, and our apartment was kind of the center of the parties, I guess, as it were. So every Friday, Saturday night, everybody every weekend would come over. We'd have a ton of beer, and we'd stay up to 2 or 3 in the morning drinking beer. So we drank like fish. And yeah, I was only 18, but all my friends were over 21, so it really wasn't a big deal. And in addition to that, we would chain smoke. So by the end of the night, the place was covered with beer cans and cigarette butts inside the cans. Kind of gross, but that's how it was. The other thing we would do was kind of a bit of a hobby. Was I did have a really nice car. It was a 69 Camaro, which I had built an engine for it, which had like 400 horsepower. It had a lot of go, but the brakes weren't very good, and it rattled. I mean, it was the only thing good in that car was the engine. So, and it would make it go. It was a death trap. I'd rack up a lot of speeding tickets, so most of the money I made was going to pay the state for all the tickets I received. I think I had at least 10 in a couple years, and to include racing speed contest tickets, and which is not a slap on the wrist. Those are pretty big, so that cost a lot of money. That's not the point of the story. So that we would drink late into the night, and then somehow, without fail, we'd end up always talking about God. So sure, we'd hit all the big debates, all the stuff that everybody needs to talk about, which is better, Ford or Chevy? Was Ozzy better, or was he better in Black Sabbath? The really big one at the time was Randy Rhoads versus Eddie Van Halen. And so we'd hit all of those, and then by the time we got through that, figuring out the important stuff, we'd get onto the bigger ticket items. It would be like, why are we here? Is there a purpose for our existence? Do you have a soul? Do you believe in souls? Do you believe in ghosts, angels, all these other things? And we would go into this and talking about God and Jesus, and we all had some level of Christian background, so we all had interesting ideas. I'm sure if we were to listen to it today, it would be a cringe fest because everybody's drunk and talking and probably didn't make any sense half the time. But I think God, in all of that mess, was starting to move in my heart. So that was Him, I think, moving in our lives to make change. So meanwhile, in another part of my life, at my work, there was a guy named Keith. And Keith was a Jesus freak who and I love Jesus Freaks, so don't get me wrong. Keith was a Jesus freak who would always, and what I mean by that is he would always walk around telling people about Jesus Christ, and he would always be wearing like Christian t-shirts, and he would always invite you out to his church, and so pleasant guy, very nice guy, and he knew I played guitar, and he played guitar in a band at the church. He did the song services, and he also did a band where they did cover songs. They were a Beach Boys cover band, and they kind of converted songs from the Beach Boys into Christian songs. And the one that I can remember, and actually they had a lot of really fun songs, but like Help Me Rhonda was Help Me Jesus. You kind of get the idea how that would work. A little bit corny, but it was fun. But he would play these shows, and he was always inviting me. He was always, we both enjoyed playing guitar, so that was something that tied us together. And then he played these shows, and he wanted me to come out and watch. And this was a Christian show. I knew it was going to be Christian based, but finally, he must have invited me 10 times. He was persistent, let's put it that way. And I'm glad that he was. So he invited me over and over. And finally one day I said, okay, let's do this. What am I going to lose? It's a Friday night, and the only thing I'm going to do is drink beer till 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. Why not? What do I have to lose? So I gave in and said, this might be fun, and decided to go with him to his show. So we're off, and I met it. He gave me the directions to his church. This is back in the olden days when you had to write down the directions, and you turn left at the 7-Eleven and right at the whatever. You actually had to know the street names. But anyway, he gave me the directions, wrote them down, and I found the church and pulled in, and I met the whole band, and they were starting to get because we had to get all the drums and all the stuff ready to go. And so I was kind of helping them as a little roadie, loading up the truck. And they were all very nice folks. Every one of them introduced themselves. They said hello. I don't remember all of their names, but I remember Matthew and Jeff and Keith. And there's another guy that I really like too, but I forget his name. But anyway, they're all super nice. And the one thing I thought was odd is, I noticed that they didn't cuss, which is not a surprise, but it kind of made me feel uncomfortable because we would cuss a lot, and at least back then. And then they would start praying. We were praying out, like they formed up in a circle, and they were praying in the parking lot of the church. The parking lot was empty. It was only us just getting the equipment, and it was a small church, but it just felt weird praying outdoors. Everybody could see us. I was kind of embarrassed by that, and but I joined in. I didn't want to be rude, I guess. We went to the venue. The venue is not what I would have expected. It was not a church building, but it was a storefront. I don't know if it was a storefront or if it was actually a business area, like a business complex, and they've turned it into a church, like a small one. But there was carpet on the floor. Must have been 100 people there, maybe even more. And then they had folding chairs, and some people were sitting on the floor. It was definitely not the typical building that you expect from, like, if you're Catholic or if you're Lutheran or most Baptist churches that are, church and steeples. This was very rudimentary. They had chairs, they had a stage. That's all they needed. They were good to go. Like I said, there was maybe 100 people. And frankly, I'm not Mr. Social anyway, so going to an event like this was, I felt awkward. I didn't know anybody, and everybody was Christian, and so it was a little bit weird. So basically, the event works like this. They have a band, which was my friend's band with the Beach Boys cover band, and then people come up and they give their testimonies. They have like little skits that are explaining lessons from God, like things like why you should be saved, or maybe they just tell stories. And then people would come up and, like I said, give their testimonies, and some of them were very heartfelt testimonies. It was kind of a neat show, but it was really 100% focused on Jesus Christ and raising up Jesus Christ. So the one thing that you really picked up from this is they were all there celebrating their own salvation. I mean, they really loved God. I mean, you could see that they loved God and they loved Jesus Christ, and they were unashamed. There was no shame in it whatsoever. It seemed as if everyone was eager to get up on stage and tell their testimony and how they got saved, and in hopes that somebody else might hear the message. From a worldly perspective, I felt that, I mean, the folks were different. I could see that they were different. They seemed happy. They seemed a little corny and a little nerdy, but man, I mean, but beside from all that, you could see the light in them shine through. They were not just living, they were celebrating life in a way that I could not understand. So again, from my jaded human point of view, it looked like weakness. They came across as if they were weak on one level, and therefore off-putting. Like they had let their guard down so much that people would take advantage of them. That's how. And again, this is from a jaded point of view, a worldly point of view. Like, how could they let their guard down so much and be so open to be taken advantage of? They seem wrong. Nobody should be this open. I mean, the only people that are this open are suckers, and either they're crazy, or maybe it's just a show, and that's where your head goes, right? So maybe they wanted money, and this is all a show for some sinister scheme to get my money or take my kidneys. Who knows? I mean, at this point, I'm checking everybody's feet to make sure they're not all wearing the same tennis shoes. So, I mean, from an outsider's point of view, something was different. I mean, really, something was significantly different, and you could see the light in every single one of them. And it just doesn't compute when you're not saved or you've never seen anything like this. It just doesn't compute. So, on the other hand, that, same person looking at this and myself, they had a carefree feel, and it was magnetic. What they had was extremely magnetic. That's the best way I could say it. They felt sincere, and it was contrary to my mentality of not wanting to be suckered, right? They only made me question my ability to discern correctly. So instead of giving them the credit for actually having a light in them that was really something different, it made me say, well, maybe my ability to discern this is off. So, it couldn't be that. It just couldn't be that. It just denying the Holy Spirit. They never did ask for anything from me. They shared their personal messages. They opened up about their personal lives, about how God had moved in their life and changed their lives. They played cheesy cover songs, and they prayed for people. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Like, these folks just didn't really fit into this world. The evening goes on, and the entertainment and the testimonies were coming to an end. And it was a good time. I had enjoyed it. That nobody asked me for money. This is just a bunch of Jesus freaks loving life. But it was getting late, at least for them. It was like 9 p.m. This is about when me and my friends were just getting started. But it was getting late, so it was time to kind of start shutting down. And at this point, this is when they start the altar call to end the evening. So at the end, for those who don't know or have ever experienced an altar call is something that's usually done at the end of a church service or an event like this, where the pastor will go up on stage and ask people if they want to come forward and give their heart to Jesus Christ. Usually explaining what it is to give your heart to Jesus Christ, and if you feel that calling, come forward and someone will pray with them. And they usually talk for a little while to give you time to make that decision and then go forward. Somebody meets you up front and prays with you, and you can be born again. So that's not the only way it has to be done, but that's what the altar call is for. And really the whole event that we were going to this evening was really around that. All of this was set up in place so that we can send a message to people, and they could hear that message of Jesus Christ, like myself, and then be called forward. So the pastor, preacher comes up to the front. Everybody's heads down in prayer, and the band members came over, and while he's performing the altar call and asking people if they want to come forward, one of the band members, Matthew, came over to me and asked if I wanted to go up front, and if I wanted to be saved. He explained salvation and Jesus and what it means real quickly. And at this point, I said no. I said thanks, but no thanks. But on the inside, the Spirit of God was pulling me. There was a war. There was a war going on between my heart and my soul and my flesh that was incredible. So I could feel the Spirit pulling me. He wanted me to go forward. It was pulling me to go forward, and I did not want to. I mean, I could feel God pulling me to go forward, and wanting me to go and give my heart, but at the same time, my flesh was saying no. And in general, I'm a reserved person, and the last thing I want to do is in an environment where I don't know anybody and I feel uncomfortable, is be the center of attention. So I was really not keen on going forward. The Holy Spirit was pulling me forward, but at the same time, the flesh was telling me that you don't want to do this. You don't want to be like these Jesus freaks. I mean, anything that the devil would tell you, these are fools and suckers. You don't want to be a fool or a sucker, like I said before. Your life, if you go forward and you give your heart to Jesus Christ, your life's going to change. You'll lose everything that you have. People won't understand you. You're going to look foolish. Imagine having to explain this to your family that now what, you're a born-again Christian. They're not going to go for that. So, not to mention, if you go forward and then you fail, but you're just going to look foolish. And what's the point in going through all of that? And the longer you wait, the better off it'll be. I mean, in my head, it's saying, hey, just wait it out. Like, it was a battle inside to fight going forward and stand, and it was a strong battle, and it just wait it out. Just wait it out. They'll stop. This will end soon, and we can move back onto our lives. We can spend every Friday and Saturday drinking. So, on the other side of the coin, I wanted to go forward. I mean, I didn't because of all of the fears I just mentioned, but I could hear the tone of the pastor as he went on, as you could hear that his tone was changing in the sense that the altar call was going to end. And as soon as I realized that, I felt fear. And it wasn't scared fear. It was fear that I was going to miss this opportunity. And then I felt shame, like, you're going to let your being embarrassed or whatever people say about you drive you to miss this opportunity. And that's how it felt. It didn't make sense, but that's how it felt. And I'm like, that's crazy. But I still was fighting it. And then about that time, that's when Matthew came over and said, hey, would you like to go forward? I'll go with you and I'll pray with you. And it was perfect timing. And I was just like, yes, I want to go forward. And then he led me in prayer. He asked me if I believe in Jesus Christ. He asked me if I wanted to give my heart to Jesus Christ and if I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And yes. And it was a life-changing event. He prayed with me, and at that moment, I know that I was marked by Jesus Christ. I mean, as the service ended, I felt I was literally a new person. I felt like I needed to do something, but I didn't know what it was. I really wasn't educated in the Bible. I didn't understand what I just signed up for, but I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to learn more, and unfortunately, everybody got busy, and we had to start loading up the vans and the trucks and the cars, and on the way home, I just kept asking questions, like trying to explain how I felt, and then I'm like, I just felt clean, and then they told me that I had been born again and that all of my sins were forgiven. And when they said that, it was just like a round peg in a round hole. I was like, that is exactly what it feels like. That is exactly how I'm feeling right now. And the first thing that pops in my head is, don't wreck it, right? It felt so good to be new and free of sin, and to be born again. And I just didn't want to wreck it. So I just remember asking, okay, so now what do we do? I feel so different. What do we do? And, and the other side of the coin is I got home around probably 10, maybe a little later, I don't know. But I didn't drink that night. And what's really crazy is there was a ton of changes in my life, and I'll go through a couple of them. But from that night, I don't believe I drank again. And it didn't even faze me. I didn't even think about it. I just ended. I just stopped drinking because I had other things to do. I started going to the church. I started living my life for God. It was a blessing to walk away from that, and frankly, I didn't even notice I walked away from it. It just happened. So a few months later, I was baptized. I started serving the church through choir, I worked the sound booth at least a few times. I played in the song services, lead guitar. We started a band. Me and the pastor's son, we were best friends and about the same age, and we started bands doing, just like my friend was doing the Beach Boys, we started doing like heavier metal bands and changing the lyrics for the heavy metal songs. And we wrote a few of our own songs. Stomp on Satan's Head was our #1 hit. We were actually pretty terrible, but we had a good time and we were preaching God. So hopefully something good came out of it. We would do ministry door to door. I even preached on a bullhorn in Las Vegas Strip. And the best memory I remember of evangelism with my friend Adam was when we heard that Megadeth was going to be signing records at a local record store. This is a while back, and I think this is around '93, so we went down to the record store, and there was a long line, so we didn't cut, but we came up alongside it, and they were sitting behind a table signing records, and we told them that they needed to repent and be saved and start following Jesus Christ. That very moment, all of them fell to their knees and said, "We repent and give our lives to God." No, I'm just kidding. That did not happen at all. Actually, the reply that we did receive was, I'm not sure which one of them, but I think it was Mustaine, but I'm not sure. But he said that Jesus was an alien flying around the planet in a spaceship or something like that. I have to say that I was not prepared for that answer. And I was like, I don't know where to go with this. Our intelligent conversation has run out the window. My friend Adam told them more about Jesus Christ, and then we ended up leaving. We could tell we weren't going to be able to do that for very long without it becoming a problem. But I would say, as a side note, that David Mustaine's family was Jehovah's Witness, and as of 2002, he became a born-again Christian. So maybe we planted a seed. Who knows? But I'd like to think so. Actually, I wonder if he actually remembers us, because it was kind of a weird interaction. So maybe he does. It's amazing how your eyes are opened when you're saved. Our church was very casual in the way we dress, and I had been going for a few months. And when one morning I was like, I'm going to dress up a little bit nicer because I want to show respect for God. So instead of wearing jeans and a t-shirt, I thought I would, wear something a little bit better. And then I go to my closet and I realized how much the world was guiding my beliefs. So, for example, every single shirt that I owned was a t-shirt, and there was only 3 categories of shirts that I owned. I didn't even have any plain shirts. They were either Marlboro shirts from smoking cigarettes, and those people who smoked back then. Remember, you could get the proof of purchase. You would save those up, and you could turn them in, and they'd give you a Marlboro t-shirt with the Marlboro Man on the front. I had a bunch of those. And then the other ones were beer shirts, which the beer company back then was cool, but today they are not. And then the third one was heavy metal bands, like Iron Maiden, Ozzy T-shirts, had Motley Crue, but that's all I had. And I've been wearing those to church for 3 months, and didn't even cross my mind. I was like wearing a Marlboro shirt to church. But what was really surprising when I look back on it is nobody said, "Hey, no, that's kind of." Nobody pointed it out that I wasn't wearing clothes that were appropriate. But at the same time, it didn't make a difference, and God had changed me. So that day was a good day to go shopping and start to say, maybe I could get less Marlboro shirts and maybe just some plain T-shirts. So another experience that God really moved in my life in that time period at the beginning was at beginning of church. At the end of church, I would go and smoke cigarettes in the parking lot. I started being more evangelistic and telling people about Jesus Christ. And I did feel a little bit of shame in the fact that I would be smoking, and I didn't feel that that was a good testimony to God. Being addicted to something didn't seem like a good testimony. So that night I ended up praying. I asked God to take the addiction from me so that I could have a good testimony for Him. I woke up in the morning. It clicked. I had no desire for cigarettes, and I had a half a pack of cigarettes, threw them in the trash. And if you've ever smoked cigarettes, throwing a half a pack of cigarettes in the trash would usually mean you're going to go trash digging later to get them out when the addiction comes back. But that did not happen. Again, God took the desire of nicotine away from me 100%. I never looked back, never went and looked for those cigarettes. So God had taken away my desire to smoke and the nicotine addiction that I had, and gave me a blessing because I had prayed for it and believed it, and also because I wanted to raise Him up through evangelism, and that was part of my testimony that was important to me, and God blessed me. So that was a wonderful time in my life, and I always look back at that in a good way. So how did I fall, I guess is a really good question, because I was really in the faith and really believed in God. But sometimes we're foolish. So I'm going to talk about my fall. After being saved, I had been saved for several years. I recall the pastor discussing examples of faith demonstrated by figures in the Bible. And they encountered, challenges and so forth, and they showed God how much that they loved Him, and they were able to follow His will. Could have been Job. I don't know if it was Job or not, but I remember having that feeling after it, like, hey, you know what? I love God that much. I could take a challenge like that. I think being young, I've, like I said, had a few years in the church, maybe a little arrogant, and I therefore still needed some growing. My roots needed some planting, and with fear, I prayed honestly that God would test me, that God would allow me the opportunity to show my faith in Him, and that I would be faithful. I totally forgot about praying, and it's one of those. So I made the prayer. I forgot that I had done it, but God didn't let me forget. So I remember once I came back to God that it hit me. It was kind of like when Peter hears the rooster crow. He's like, "Oh yeah, Jesus said I would do this." It was exactly like that. So a little embarrassing, and it really did show me, hey, you didn't pass the test. So I guess the flesh is weak, but I did learn. Well, I hope I did. The way I felt was kind of typical. I had been going to the church for about 3 years. I was not dating or even had any opportunities for dating. This was before online dating was around, and this is 93. So I I was 23 years old. I did go to a couple of big churches, trying to see if I could go into one of the bigger. Our church was small, so we didn't have a lot of people that were my same demographic or girls. So we would go to the bigger churches sometimes with me and a couple of the guys and see if we can meet girls there. And you know how awkward it is to meet girls anyway, especially at age 23. And then going to church and trying to meet them, that was even more awkward. So that never panned out. We never met anybody that way. So a girl does show up to our church, and she's kind of in the demographic zone, but she was not solid in her faith. And that didn't seem to bother me any. And so I ended up pursuing her. We ended up getting married despite the pastor saying this is probably not a good idea. Shortly after that, I had lost my job, and then, like I said, I was making good money, but then I lost my job. So now I have now my son was born, and then I lost my job, and then here we are. So I ended up joining the Army, and then once I joined the Army, it really got me away from my foundation of Christ, and my wife not being engaged in the church didn't provide any added strength there. So it's not her fault. I was weak, and therefore I did not pursue Christ as I should have. On top of that, so we got married. I had my son, and then I went into the Army. The Army sent me. I went to basic training, which was fine. Then I went to AIT, which was fine. So I don't know, 16 weeks gone, and then my first assignment was in Korea for a year. So, our first year of marriage, I was gone, and then by the time I got returned, my wife had a boyfriend, which made our marriage awkward. So we ended up getting divorced, and that's at that point kind of really where I started to fall away, and started drinking and being promiscuous, and I no longer living for God. I ended up with a girlfriend that smoked, and then I started smoking, and even then I knew God gave me this gift, and I am disrespecting that gift, and I started smoking again, which was terrible. I started to feel like, questioning, was God even real? Why can't God give me a sign? Challenging people like, where's the miracle? Show me, prove it. And then God never seemed inclined to provide parlor tricks for me to believe again. So therefore, I just kind of pushed away, and it was like that for a long time. Like I said, I started smoking, so that was, to me, a sign, hey, you've really kind of fallen away if you started smoking again. The devil that had spoken to me when I was being pulled forward was back on my shoulder, and anytime I would think about going back to Christ, he was like, yeah, you don't want to do that. That's all fake. That's a lie. So I didn't go to church. And if I did go to church, I would feel the draw. I would feel Christ pulling on me, knocking at the door, but I wasn't going to answer. I don't know why God moved in my life. I literally thank him every day for finding me worthy despite me rejecting him. He had mercy on me, gave me a nudge when I needed it, and he pushed me back into a place where I could serve him and love him again. And I really do thank him every day. And God, our God is an awesome God. I don't know how to say it otherwise. The one thing is we live on a planet where we experience God often and we don't even recognize it. We say, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone. We all experience God, from the Satanists to false prophets to the lost to the found. Everyone experiences God at some level. I'm not saying everyone's saved. Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying we all benefit from his presence in the world. I mean, that's despite the world being cursed, Satan being cast down to this world, Satan trying to take us down with him. God's presence is still felt whether we acknowledge it or not. What I'm saying is God is all around us, not just through evidence in creation, but in evidence in all of the good that is in the world. I mean, a lot of people don't like to hear it, but and it's hard to hear and it's hard to believe sometimes, but we are in a fallen state. We humans are evil, and if left to our own devices, we would do evil. With a full separation of God comes full separation of hope, and that's hard to imagine. But everything we do, from making coffee in the morning to loving our children, all come from God. Without God, there would not be love, and without hope and love, we're only filled with hate, vengeance, despair. You get the idea. For all of us, there's a veil between us and God, and this applies to everyone, Christians as well as non-Christians. I feel for Christians, we see and acknowledge that veil through faith and God and Jesus Christ. But for the non-believers, they don't acknowledge the veil. If they did, that means that there is a God outside themselves, and they would need to seek God. Instead, they will not acknowledge the truth. Their lack of acknowledgement, however, does not change the truth. It only feeds to support their self-induced, stunted spiritual growth. So leading up to this, nothing really sparked it. I didn't see any breadcrumbs leading to this, but one night I went to bed and had a dream. At the time, it was vivid, but today I actually don't remember the dream at all. I just remember basically the message and emotion that I received from it and how it changed my life. In the dream, I feel like he stepped away to give me an understanding of what it would be like to be without him, to show me that he has been with me all of this time, and it made me understand what it would be like without him. And honestly, that is all it took. I'm not saying that God left me. I'm just saying that he kind of took a step back. While I was sleeping and when I was awake through the next day, I could feel that feeling of what it would be like without God. It felt like you're walking into a situation where you don't recognize the danger that you're actually in. Kind of like people that get out of their cars when they're taking pictures of lions, and they don't recognize the danger that they put themselves in until the lion attacks. Then everything clicks, and it's like, wait a second, this was a foolish thing to do. And that's about how I felt. Like the lions, I'm walking into the lion's den and not recognizing the sharp, pointy teeth. In this case, God was there, and I knew it. I knew that he had only moved back a little bit to give me that feeling. This was just a small taste of what it would be like. I imagine, based on my experience, a full removal of God's presence would be devastating. I don't even know if in the flesh we would be able to live through that. I don't know. I'm speculating on that. I don't know. But so don't take my word for it. What I can say though is God gave me the little kick in the pants that I needed to recognize where I was, that I was falling into a trap, and that I was being foolish, because I should know better. I would say, admittedly, I didn't deserve for him to do this for me, but I do pray to him and thank him for his grace every day. So needless to say, God moved that day in my life. I repented of my sin, and from that point, I knew I kind of knew what to expect, right? So I knew my life would be changing, and I knew this was going to impact my relationships. I had my girlfriend I had been with for 15 years. That relationship might end, and I prayed about that, and that is something I was willing to give up if that's what it took. But when I told her, to my surprise, she was happy. She said she had been praying for me for a long time, and then when I explained to her what this means as far as being a Christian and so forth, she was on board. She was 100% on board. So another thing that occurred was that at this time of my life, I really enjoyed cigars. Every evening, I'd go in the backyard. It was what I considered one of my life pleasures. I really enjoyed the downtime it took to smoke a cigar. It usually takes about 45 minutes or so, and I really enjoyed the quiet. You could read a book or just enjoy nature, maybe while sitting out back and just relaxing. You might remember I felt like I betrayed God's gift when He took nicotine away from me, the addiction. And for me, as a gift, or not a payment, as a gift, I wanted to do something for God for that was symbolic. And so I made a promise that I would stop smoking cigars and overcome the current addiction on my own. I wanted to give God a gift, and I thought that was a very symbolic gift. So I gave up cigars forever, and needless to say, my wife was not upset by that at all. I sold my humidor. I gave away a bunch of Cuban cigars that I had just purchased on vacation and brought them back. I did not actually get to try any of them, which was a little bit disappointing, but God is good. So I don't believe the cigars were inherently evil, so I'm not making a statement about cigars or nicotine here. I'm just trying to say that this was a symbolic act as it relates to my relationship with God. It's something that I really wanted to do, and I hope that God honors it. So my transition back, so I gave up cigars, and I told my wife, and the transition back to serving a God was steep. What I mean is, when I recommitted my life, it was as if I never left. Actually, I spent more time in the Word and less time on a bullhorn, but God started moving in my life the very day that I committed back to Him, as if I had never left, and we started right where I left off. Like the prodigal son, I was laying with pigs and returned home where I was received in joy. It made my faith in God even stronger, that He would take me back in this way. So I do appreciate that. There was some benefit in all of this chaos, but as usual, I always do things the hard way. So God started to immediately move in my life. My girlfriend was baptized as an adult, and we started serving God together. We had been together for 15 years, and I'm so glad that today we are married, and we have God's blessing over our marriage, because at that point we were both born again, and we both seek God first before we seek each other. So what a blessing, and that's the relationship that I had been looking for forever. So that's quite the blessing. The next change was I started this channel to try to share God's glory with the world. I'll probably reach like 5 people, but if I do, that's great. It will be small, but one person hears God's word and it touches them and makes a difference. It's all worth it. With that, I would say, if you recall, I would keep your money and keep your kidneys, and and we're all not wearing the same shoes. Give God all the glory, and most of all to the Jesus freaks out there, keep being Jesus freaks. And those who don't know Him, pray, seek God, be humble. He will meet you halfway. I know He will. I hope you enjoyed getting to know me and seeing how God worked in my life. As I look back, it's been kind of an amazing story, and I really realized by doing this how much God has always really been there, and I really do appreciate that. And I again, I've said this 3 times now, but I thank Him every day. Thank you, Lord. And I hope you enjoyed my story, because God is good, and He deserves all the glory. So I'm your host, Terry Monroe, and this is the good news. I'll see you on the next episode.